Greetings and welcome back to the next Success Loops Masterclass. Today, we are doing success conspiracy theory. In my research, I discovered a guy by the name of Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. But I saw this now on his teachings. And he basically went into the science and looked at a whole bunch of science rules or constructs, the exact science of, and we think everything is perfectly cut and dry. And this is where the conspiracy kind of comes in, which is very cool for me. And I just love this stuff. I geek out on it. So he kind of tore these all apart. And he did it so logically that his audience was laughing. So it was actually a TED talk. Now, what happened is he obviously pissed off some of his peers because eventually this TED talk was removed and it was actually labeled as pseudoscience. Now, with all the misinformation that's going around these days, I am very, very suspicious of what people just want to sweep under the carpet and say is pseudo or is lies or, is nonsense or fact checkers and all that nonsense. I encourage everyone to look for themselves and to actually do their own research. So his theory was, he calls it morphic resonance. The morphic fields, morphic resonance. And he speaks of a collective memory and that there are interconnections. And this just resonates with me completely. However, for me, it's sad that he was TED now, the TED talk was actually taken down and removed, and it says that it's now considered pseudoscience. So let's have a look at that. Now, the main reason now that Rupert Sheldrake was considered to be pseudoscience is the reason of, to really break it down, because I don't have a lot of time to go into all of his talks, but it was how our intentions impacts our outcomes. So with us all being connected with all of this and interconnections, our connections do have an impact. And now this pisses off a lot of people that says, no, it's very cut and dry, that is an exact science, and everything is a cookie cutter kind of a vibe, and there's no gray area. There was the experiments, I think, of these monkeys on these individual islands, and they would get, I think they was potatoes or sweet potatoes that they found, and they found that this one island, the group of monkeys or gibbons or whatever it was, they would wash it in seawater. Not only would it clean it, but it would make it more palatable. And as soon as the others on the island observed this, they started to copy it and started to do it. And as soon as a critical mass of them on the island were doing this, the studies showed that on the other islands, even though I had no physical connection or way to observe, suddenly they started to doing it as well. I find that quite interesting because of all the studies and the researches that I do, and a lot of people that come up with different theories regarding success or our intuitions or our abilities and our potential. A lot of them, even though they're different authors from all over the world, they're all pretty much saying the same thing. So there's a synergy and a connection that seems to be in the mix here. So let's explore that. Now, first of all, when it comes to science, that while even though everything is kind of measured and everything, it's pretty much subject to our five senses. And I just want us to very basically take a sweep out and take a look at the pictures that are going to be posted up here. And our five senses can be easily tricked. We don't always see the full picture. And I mean, this is not only just with our visual, but also our auditory as well. There'll be a link that I'll put somewhere in the description that'll show you evidence of that as well. So we don't always see exactly what we think the picture is. Our mind does filter it in certain ways, and we get our own perceptions of it. So now this brings me to my saying where I say, mistrust the science, because everyone's saying, don't you trust the science? Don't you trust the science? I'm saying, hold on a second. I always have my hashtag deeper truths, and whatever evidence I'm given, I say, big question mark, is there a deeper truth to this? So there was, my favorite story is the two groups of scientists that wanted to prove, the one party wanted to prove light was a particle, the other one wanted to prove it was a wave. Those that came with the intention that wanted to prove it was a particle found evidence supporting that it's a particle, and those that wanted to prove it as a wave similarly found evidence proving it was a wave. Who's right and who's wrong? So now, my most recent discovery was a guy who, instead of using light now, and it's called the double slit experiment. You guys can Google it and check it out. This guy now says that they used an atom gun instead of light. So they have a barrier which they have one slit in, and then they fire the atoms through this gun, and they have a light sensitive background that measures where contact is made. And so when one slit is there, the atoms make contact and forms one line. When a double slit is made, just like the light experiment as well, instead of it making two bars of light, like you think the first one did, it doesn't. And actually the bars of light are like a ladder. It breaks up from what is particle, then into wave. So there's a whole bunch of these lines of atoms that are hitting at specific places. One being very specific, looking, acting like a particle, and the other double slit, then suddenly it's now a wave. This is where it gets interesting, because now they wanted to measure was an even amount of atoms going through each slit. So they put a sensor by the top one just to measure, to confirm that 50% was going through the top slit, so that 50% obviously be going through the bottom slit. What they found now suddenly is when they turned on the sensor, it stopped acting like a wave and acted like a particle. There was now suddenly only 2 points on the photosensitive screen that was measuring where the atoms were hitting. So suddenly, when you flip the switch and turn on the sensor, boom, it acts like a particle. Turn off the sensor, goes back to being a wave. And the guy that delivered this talk actually said, if there's anybody that can explain this to me, you're liable to get an award. So these guys doing the experiment even said to the one person, look, I tell you what, let's try and trick the sensor and see if it does anything. At random time periods, flick the switch, and the same thing happened. Whenever the sensor was on, shifted from wave to particle, and vice versa. So there's something that goes beyond this, that maybe we can't always explain, and we shouldn't be so quick to shut down other people and call it pseudoscience. We need to see deeper truths. So now we're asking, how does this affect the science of success, or the science to the sequence of success? If we delve deeper, then let's look at what I call the hidden order of the universe, and I'm not the only one to talk about that. I actually get the term the hidden order actually from Dr. John D. Martini. And he refers to it as an intelligence that is out there, an collective intelligence that pretty much orders everything. And then when we microscope in on this little intelligence and just see our little jaded view, we notice absolute random chaos. But if we macroscope and zoom right out and we see a much larger picture, we then start to see cycles. We then start to see order. We start to see that it's organized, and that there is indeed an intelligence that governs this, and it's a divine tapestry. Now, if we look at this intelligence from a personal level, you can see we don't have to think our hearts to beat. We don't have to think our stomach to digest our food. And even if we think you control your breathing, if you hold your breath for long enough, you'll pass out. As soon as you pass out, your breathing will immediately ensue. So there's an intelligence to our personal. On a global level, if we just leave Mom Nature the hell alone, what happens? She orders herself perfectly. There is a dynamic equilibrium, and it balances itself out. Right, from a universal perspective, if we look at how all the planets follow the same pattern, the same elliptical around the sun, and we're all cruising through the universe, maintaining this whole order. there is an order. Now, if you still don't believe that, then there's this other experiment, and they call it a Chladni plate. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right either, but the Chladni plate is pretty much a metal plate that's attached to a speaker, and they play a sound through it. Now, I love this because I've been a musician for years, and I love using music and sound to teach with, because first of all, I use a little looping pedal, because everything in life is cyclical, and music is frequency, and everything is made up of cycles, and everything is pretty much frequency. So if they played a specific frequency through that speaker that vibrated that plate, and they had sand particles on it, just that one frequency, those sand particles would organize themselves into a specific pattern, almost like a kaleidoscope, very ordered and very geometric. Now, if you then played a different frequency, they would reorganize into a different geometric shape. But now go back to the original frequency, it will go back to that original shape. So there is an order to our universe. So the trick is for us now to be open-minded enough now to say, right, can we align with this intelligence that exists out there, align with this order? And if we can do that, will it help augment our success? And I believe absolutely it will. And I think it's a fundamental thing, because if science is just one exact science that you stick to, then if everyone just did follow that sequence of success, we'd all be successful. There'd be no change. But that doesn't happen. It's different to each and every one of us. And in fact, more of us are experiencing lack of success and more mediocre success than actually the more high-ended, high-performer success that a lot of us are actually desiring. So now, how can we use this now to our advantage? So if we do believe that our intentions have a direct impact on our circumstances, well, then we can actually see this now, especially when when our intentions now that we actually have that are very focused thought. That focused thought has now become to be a deep-seated belief. Now, when we have a deep-seated belief, we see that there's proof of that immediately directly influences our outcome. We see it in the placebo and the nocebo, that what we believe we're not going to get, even if we take what should give it to us, it cancels it out. And whatever we don't get that we think we're getting, we create the circumstances like we just got it. That's pretty much the placebo and nocebo. So that's the one way of doing it. That's what we're going to get beyond our beliefs, to really have that strong belief that we can actually then directly attract those circumstances and manifest them. Now, that's not always so easy, because most of the times our thoughts are so bloody erratic that we're always thinking beliefs, fears, beliefs, fear, or what ifs and should haves and what nots, and we often, instead of chasing the desire, we often trying to avoid that which we seem as undesirable. So that's the one part. Now the other part is, this is the part that I think is the fundamental part of us getting towards, and why we don't, when we practice the sequence of success, that pretty much the fundamentals that everyone put out there, why it doesn't always seem to work for us is the fundamental block is that we each of us is different. Now, because I say that there is a design and a divine tapestry, and there's intelligence that goes in, there was this divine intelligence that created each and every one of us completely unique and different. And I believe this design is for a greater purpose. And so much of the time we do not embrace our individuality, our unique individuality. We've been taught from youngsters to, like, that's unacceptable, don't do that, do it this way, you got to be this. And we've almost been gaslit in a way that this is the way to do things, and this is how you should be, and with everybody having the unique individuality, which means we have our different values and our different priorities and our different principles and our different talents and our different aptitudes. We are always, because that works for us, we are always trying to push our values and priorities and our belief systems onto other people. We've had that being done to us from a young age, from our parents, from our grandparents, from our schools, from educations, from leaders, religions, you name it. So more often than not, we come up with a sense of lack of worth, and we believe that we're incomplete and we're not enough. And pretty much everybody else, because it works for them, imprints their values, their priorities, their aptitudes, because it works for them, so it must work for you, onto you. And we end up then pretty much alienating ourselves from our own authenticity. Now, because your authenticity was super consciously conspired, it's part of this tapestry, we need to tap into it. However, we've grown up now being told, don't do this, don't do the other thing. We're conditioned to do it because every time we be what we're not, we get approval, we get acknowledgement, we get acceptance, we even get love. So often we be that which is outside of our true intrinsic worth because there was rewards for it. Now, we don't even realize sometimes how much we are out of touch with our own unique authenticity and our uniqueness that sets us apart. And I'll give you an example. Let me prove it to you by asking you a quick little test. So, if you really think you know yourself pretty well, your authentic self pretty well, then are you able to express in a short paragraph, very succinctly to the point, in a couple of sentences, first of all, your vision, how you want the world to look, your mission, your intention, and your purpose. And if you can state all four of those, then you're pretty much, even if you do one of them, I'll be impressed. But most of the time, I mean, I've sat when I do my morning priming and I do my joy journaling. I've been doing this for years. There's times where I will redefine and refine my vision, mission, purpose, and intention, and I refine it. I can have all four of these now, and I can verbalize them. And that's taken me some time. Most people cannot do that. So it's really important that we get back in touch with that authentic part of ourselves that was designed that way, designed differently, because this is how we now align with the intelligence and the magic that is the creative force that exists already. Now, if you struggled as much as I did with my vision, mission, intention statements, and you require some tools, we can help you with that. I've created a community called the Labyrinth Circle of Success. And the first tier of this community has like 6 or 7 resources that are available to you for absolutely free. That one of these resources, now there's a whole bunch of things in there. There's 2 trainings that are absolutely free. The one is Training with Titans, sharing success strategies from big names like Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, John Assaraf, and the like. There's then also the breaking through stress, anxiety, and depression. So it's an emotion, mastering emotions. There is the getting decisive strategy. There is the mentor in your mailbox, which is the bi-monthly emails that come with the newsletters and with the inspirational quotes. There is the Facebook group, which is the community support. And there's the 6 assessments that you can take for finding your authentic self. 6 assessments that will give you a big insight into where your aptitudes lie, where your interests are, where your priorities are, where your values, your deep-seated values are. That stuff that sets you apart from everyone else, because at the end of the day, you were made to stand out, which makes you outstanding. So the link for this will be in the description, along with all the other links that I put down that's part of this talk. Please go check them out, grab them, so that you can align with the sequence to scientific success. And let's end off with a conspiracy ending. We've all heard of this saying that knowledge is power, and then they say, hold on a second, knowledge is not power. They say applied knowledge is power. And then everyone goes, yeah, that makes good sense. That's great. I say, not quite. Let's go deeper truths on that one. So getting beyond that, instead of, because there's so much misinformation out there, you can apply knowledge. How do you know if that knowledge is correct or if it's misinformation? So I go so far as to say applied wisdom is true power. Because wisdom, generally defined, actually relates to a greater understanding. And pretty much most mentors and high achievers and enlightened gurus all say that greater understanding is the shortest path to ease suffering and to find greater prosperity. So that's today's masterclass, the success conspiracy theory. And I'd like to wish you well, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, as always, cheers to our collective success. Peace out, much love.
The Big Cigar.